Dear friends, welcome to Homeschooling Channel. Standard 10th Social Science History Unit 7 Anticolonial Movements and the Birth of Nationalism. Friends, in this lesson, the story of resistance and a varied range of response against the British rule in Indian subcontinent from the early and mid 19th century to the early 20th century are outlined. On 23rd June 1757, the Nawab of Bengal, Siraj Uddaula, was defeated by the East India Company at the Battle of Plassey. Later, the company received 22.5 million from Mir Zafar, who became the new Nawab of Bengal. The same money was invested in Britain. So, the plunder of India by the East India Company continued for another 190 years. Let's see the peasant and tribal resistance. In the 18th century, a far more aggressive response to the British rule emerged in rural India. The traditional elite of peasantry, along with the tribals, revolted. They were not necessarily seeking the removal of British, but rather the restoration of pre-colonial order. There were nearly 100 of peasant uprisings during British rule. They can be classified into the following categories. They are restorative rebellions, religious movements, social banditry, mass insurrection. Now let's see the reasons for these kind of uprisings. The first one is changes in the revenue system. The East India Company restructured the Mughal revenue system across India in such a manner that it increased the financial burden on the peasants. There was no widespread system of private ownership of the land in pre-British India. Subletting of land. The practice of letting out and subletting of land complicated the agrarian relations. The zamindar often sublet land to many subordinate lords who in return collected a fixed amount of revenue from the peasant. This increased the tax burden on the peasants. The peasant uprisings. Peasant revolts began to erupt in the early 19th century and continued till the very end of British rule in India. First, let's see about the Farazi movement. It was launched by Mr. Haji Shariatullah in 1818. But after the death of Shariatullah in the year 1839, the rebellion was led by his son, Mr. Dudu Mian, who called upon the peasants not to pay tax. He said that land belongs to God and collecting rent or levying taxes on it was therefore against divine law. Large number of peasants were mobilized through a network of village organizations. After the death of Dudu Mian in the year 1862, revived in the year 1870 by Nova Mian. Then let's see the Wahhabi rebellion in Parasit. This was an anti-imperial and anti-landlord movement. It organized in and around 1827 in the Parasit region of Bengal. It was led by an Islamic preacher, Tidu Mir. He was deeply influenced by Wahhabi teachings. The tribal uprisings. British laws had changed many things in tribal lifestyle. From practices to taxes and from traders to moneylenders. From practices to taxes and from traders to moneylenders, everything came under British laws. Tribal groups couldn't digest that for long. Santals scattered in various parts of eastern India when forced to move out of their homeland during the process of creation of Jamins under permanent settlement, cleared the forest area around Rajmahal Hills. They were opposed by the local police and the European officers engaged in the railway construction. Pushed out of their familiar habitat, the Santals were forced to rely on the moneylenders for their subsistence. Soon they were trapped in the circle of debt. Besides this, they also felt neglected. So, around 1854, activities of social banditry led by person named Bir Singh was reported from different places. These were directed against Mahajans and traders. In 1855, two Santal brothers, Sidhu and Kanu, proclaimed that they had received a divine message from the god asking them to lead the rebellion. By July 1855, the rebellion has taken the form of open insurrection against the Magajans, the Jamindars, and the British officials. They marched with bows, poisoned arrows, axes, and swords, taking over the Raj Mahal and Bahalpur by proclaiming that the company rule was about to end. In response, villages were raided and properties destroyed by the British. In 1855, an act was passed to regulate the territories occupied by the Santals. The act formed the territory into a separate division called Santal Bargana Division. Munda Rebellion. One of the prominent tribal rebellions of this period occurred in Ranchi, known as Ulugulan Rebellion. The Munda people were familiar with the cooperative or collective farming known as Kuntkati land system. It was totally eroded by the introduction of private ownership of land and the institution of merchants and moneylenders. The Munda people were also forcefully recruited as laborers to work on plantations. In the year 1890, the tribal chiefs offered resistance against the alienation of tribal people from their land and imposition of Beth Behari or forced labor. The movement received on impetus when Birsa Munda declared himself as the messenger of God. Birsa claimed that he had promised supernatural solutions to the problem of Munda people and the establishment of Birsite Raj. The Munda leaders utilized the cult of Birsa Munda to recruit more people to their cause. A series of meetings were held. On the Christmas Day of 1889, they resorted to violence. Buildings were burnt down and arrows were shot at Christian missionaries and Munda Christian converts. Soon, police stations and government officials were attacked. Similar attacks were carried out over the next few months. And finally, the resistance was crushed and Birsa Munda was arrested in February 1900, who later died in jail. Birsa Munda became a folk hero who is to this day celebrated in many folk songs. The Munda rebellion prompted the British to formulate a policy on tribal land. The Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act 1908 restricted the entry of non-tribal people into the tribal land. And this is the question corner. The Farazi movement was launched by whom? Please post your answers in the comment section. Dear friends, stay tuned with Homeschooling channel. Thank you.